Hi, I'm Marcia Winbeckler, and I hope you enjoyed today's video. For any of the supplies used in the video, you can go to our website, CakeSuppliesPlus.com. While you're there, be sure to also check out some of the amazing cakes that we made over the years, including many life-size cake sculptures. Hi, today I want to show you how to use some acrylic frosting guides to get nice straight edges and nice sharp corners on your cakes. And besides the acrylic guides, some things you're going to need is a turntable. In this case I have a turntable expander on my regular 12-inch turntable, and what that does is that just expands it to up to 20 inches, and it's also handy for cleaning, etc. It's a kind of an inexpensive item really for all of the benefits that you get out of it. And then besides that, you're going to need a bench scraper or icing scraper, and you want one with a plastic or wooden handle. And if you're going to do a taller double barrel or double high cake, you're going to want a tall bench scraper. And to work with the acrylic frosting guides, I want to have a sheet of the sealable plastic wrap, and one side of it is sticky, and I have the sticky side up, and I'm going to press my acrylic guide here on top of that. And I want to make sure that underneath this there's no air bubbles, so it's nice and smooth underneath there. And I don't want too much bulk building up on my plastic, so I'm going to trim off the excess here. Let's get rid of the corners. And the reason that you don't want a lot of bulk building up is because later you're going to need to set a level across the center of this, and you don't want a big bunch of the plastic wrap here that keeps your level kind of tilted. You want it nice and flat. So after I have that trimmed, then I just want to pull in and kind of pull tight on the plastic wrap, kind of alternate the sides on that so it keeps it in place. And it's sort of like covering a cake board if you're ever covered one with foil. And then I want to pull that tight and then keep doing that in the center of each section. And then make sure that the edge is nice and tight and that there's no big bulk building up there. And get it nice and tight on the edge, because your scraper, your icing scraper, your bench scraper will be going along the edge, so you don't want it to be catching on any pieces of this plastic wrap. So make sure it's nice and tight around here. And see, in the center here, this is where your level will sit, so you want to make sure that you didn't have a big bulk of the plastic wrap there. So to put the icing on the disc, first I have just a working board here, a prep board, and then a piece of non-skid, and then my acrylic disc with the plastic covered side up. And then I'm going to take my icing, and I'm using a butter-based icing here. And with a palette knife, I'm just going to put a thin coat on, and I want to work back and forth and make sure I try to get no air bubbles right next to the disc. And by putting kind of a thin coat right next to the disc first, then that will minimize the number of air bubbles that will be on the surface that I might have to correct later. And then I'll take an angled spatula here and put on a thicker coat of the icing so that it's somewhere around 1/4 inch or so thick. And then I can go across it with a larger spatula and kind of level it off. You want to try to get it as level as you can. After you have that kind of leveled off, I'm going to take the palette knife again and just kind of go around the outer edge of the acrylic disc, and then clean away any of the excess icing here. So once I have the edge cleaned up there, then I'm just going to set this aside until I have my cake frosted. After I have covered the disc, like I've just shown you, the disc is going to go on top. I want to cover the top of my cake in a rather generous portion of the buttercream icing. And I'm using a butter-based buttercream icing here, but this can be done also with a shortening-based buttercream using the same technique. So I just want to get that fairly flat on top there. And if it makes it a little easier to handle, you can actually chill your buttercream that's on your disc a little while. But I'm going to set that on top there and kind of press it down so the two buttercreams, the buttercream that's on the disc and the buttercream that's on the cake, kind of meld together. So I'm using my two bench scrapers, and I want to make sure that they are hitting both the bottom acrylic disc and the top acrylic disc at the same time. Then I'll rotate my turntable and keep doing that all around the cake to make sure that the acrylic discs are centered. The top one is centered, and if it's not, then you want to nudge it over a little bit to get it centered where it's not. So the next thing we want to do is level, make sure the cake is level, and see the little bubble there is not in the center, and so I want to press it until it does come to the center, and then I want to twist my cake around and keep doing that until I get it centered in many different positions. And the reason I didn't want a lot of the sealable plastic wrap in the center when I was showing you that is so that it wasn't in the way of my level when I was trying to level it here. And so there I think I've got it nice and level, and now I'm going to frost the sides of the cake. Another thing you might want to do just to make sure is remove your level and get down at eye level and spin your turntable, and sometimes you can see if there's any little area that might still be out of level. So now I just want to take my buttercream icing and cover the sides, and I want the icing to come out farther than both of the acrylic discs. And I also want to push the buttercream up in this little corner or crevice where the acrylic disc at the top here comes, to make sure that I get a nice sharp edge there. And I have my recipe for this butter-based buttercream on another YouTube video. It's my mock Swiss meringue buttercream, and it's using a meringue powder, so it's nice and easy. There's no cooking, no hot syrup involved, and it's delicious. So I have my cake nice and covered with the buttercream, and I have it so that it's hopefully the depth all the way around of the two acrylic discs. And I'll find that out shortly when I start using my scraper here to go around. And I want to make sure that my scraper hits both the top and bottom discs, and that I'm clearing off my scraper as I go around. And as you go around, you should start to see the clear acrylic at the top and the clear acrylic at the bottom, and that way you know you're hitting both discs. And I'm going to stop and take a little assessment here and see if I see any gaps or air bubbles. If I do, I see a couple of air bubbles there. I want to take my palette knife and a little bit of the icing and just go over those. And then after I've added wherever I have any little flaws, I'll go back with a scraper and scrape away any excess there. And then if you want it to be super smooth, you can use hot water on your scraper, and if you do that, you want to use a scraper that doesn't have a metal handle or a metal edge, because it'll get hot. I've got a plastic edge one here, and I just dip it in the water, and it's not really the water that I'm wanting as the heat, so I'm going to wipe off most of the water there. And then I just want to go around again, making sure it's touching both discs. And you want to continue doing that until you get it as smooth as you want. And especially for a buttercream iced cake where you're not going to cover this in fondant, then you want it really smooth. And then I would take my palette knife and just kind of clear off the top here. And then I'm going to set this in the refrigerator for about half an hour for a butter-based buttercream, or if I was using a shortening-based buttercream, I would put it in there for about an hour, because shortening does not get as hard as quickly in the refrigerator. I've taken the cake out of the refrigerator now after it's chilled a while. So now what I want to do is peel back my plastic wrap, and I want to make sure and get it all the way off the edge of the acrylic disc. I'm going to kind of pull over and pull down on it. Do that all the way around. The reason you want it off the side of the disc is because we're going to lift the disc off, and the plastic will be left on top of the cake. So we don't want this attached to the disc any longer. And then I'm going to take my palette knife and put it under the disc here and kind of scoot it around and remove the disc. And then I will peel back the plastic and show you the top of the cake here. And then if you see any imperfections on the top, it looks pretty good, but I'm going to go, I see maybe like here where there's a little divot, and I've softened a little bit of the icing, just a few seconds in the microwave to get it a little extra soft. And then I will go over any areas that might have any little imperfections and kind of scoot the palette knife across that. I might have a little divot in this area, so I'm going to fill that in with the icing, and this will set fairly quickly because remember your cake is cold, so you want to move rather quickly. And now I want to remove the bottom acrylic disc, and while my icing is still firm, I want to scoop my palette knife under, and remember you have a cake board on top of this, and in between those two you have some of the non-skid, so I want to get between the acrylic disc and the cake board, and then I will just scoop my palette knife around here and loosen up the cake off of the disc. And then I want to transfer it over to another board. And here's the finished cake, and using the acrylic disc I can get this really sharp edge here, and also the sides are nice and straight.